Welcome to a very special Halloween edition of Bootleg Shit. Now you're probably wondering, has there ever been a bootleg or unlicensed game based on something scary or spooky? Well, as a matter of fact, yes. And the perfect game to make a bootleg out of was none other than the original Resident Evil, also known as Biohazard in Japan. Now, why would I mention the Japanese name if pretty much all of us know about it? Well, because that's what the bootleg version is called. Yes, people, they actually made a bootleg Famicom version of Resident Evil. Now, of course, the original Resident Evil was a classic, as well as all the early sequels. And unlike the more recent games, which are more linear, pre-4 Resident Evil games were true survival horror. You had to learn how to control your character, you had a limited supply of ammo and ink ribbons, you had to solve various puzzles, and you had to figure out where to go and how to escape. The old Resident Evil games were not just about killing zombies and monsters and whatnot. The original games were about survival. And not only did the original Resident Evil get a remake twice, it also got a demake. An unofficial demake, but a demake nonetheless. So did the bootleggers did a good job with this demake? Or is it another crappy bootleg? Well,
there's only one way to find out.
So before you start the game, you get the whole story, of course. And sadly, yes, most of the text is in Chinese. But if you played the original Resident Evil, you should know the whole story by now. Though I'm not entirely sure if this is based on the original 1996 release or the director's cut. I didn't get too far in this game, and you'll know why later. By the way, you want to know who made this game? That's right, folks. The same exact people who made that shitty Pokemon Red bootleg. Well, there goes nothing. Oh, and one more thing. The ROM version causes a lot of freezing and crashing, so you're gonna see a lot of cuts of the gameplay footage in this episode. So you start off as Jill Valentine along with Barry Burton and Albert Wesker at the mansion's main lobby. Then you follow Barry to the room with the clock, and from here on out you control the rest of the game, just like in the original. Unfortunately though, you can't play as Chris Redfield in this, most likely due to limitations. For the most part, this isn't a bad demake. It's actually pretty faithful to the original Resident Evil. At the start of the game, I was able to figure out most of the puzzles and got all the keys and items I needed for later on in the game. However, there were also moments that were very frustrating and confusing, and I will explain why. For one thing, the colors in almost every room look exactly the same. It's all gray with some yellow and brown areas, and there's little to no difference in each room. Many times I got really confused. In fact, it almost felt like a maze. Thank God I played the original Resident Evil years ago, because if this was new to me, I would be completely lost. Let me give you a good example. You see this room with the green squiggly lines that look like electricity? Well, rest assured, this is not an electric room. When I first got in here, I had no clue what to do. That wasn't until I inserted the chemical bag into the little gray box that I discovered that this was the room with the plant and the water fountain, and the gray box is the generator. Now let me ask you a question. If you never played the original Resident Evil and saw this, would you honestly know that this was the plant room? I seriously doubt people who are new to the series would figure that out. And with the Chinese subtitles, that doesn't help either. Here's another example, an even better one. Remember the room with all the paintings of different ages in life, and you had to press a button on each painting on the correct order? For example, you had to press the baby, the infant, the young age, the middle age, and then the old man, and then the death painting. Well, try doing that in this version. You're not going to figure this out at all on your own because all the paintings look exactly the same. They have all those little mountains with the sun and shit. I don't know what that is. Here I am just guessing and pressing every single painting to see if I'm lucky. And of course nothing works. All that happens is birds attacking me and I enter into the battle screen, which I'm gonna talk about right now. But first, let's talk briefly about another game. See, the bootleggers weren't the only ones who attempted an 8-bit Resident Evil game. In fact, Capcom themselves have tried this as well, on the Game Boy Color. However, this is not a direct port of any of the existing Resident Evil games. This is a spin-off called Resident Evil Gaiden. Now, why am I bringing this up? Well, the battle system where you fight the zombies and monsters and whatnot was also used in this bootleg. Unfortunately, it plays a lot worse. When you're trying to kill a zombie, dog, bird, or anything, you have to time it right and press when the square hits the center. Resident Evil Gaiden was kind of like this as well, but at least you could shoot on the sides. Here, the moving square goes so fast, it makes shooting in the center really frustrating, especially if your health is low. Surprisingly though, the knife actually works. In the old Resident Evil games, the knife was completely useless. Even when killing zombies, they had little to no effect. Here, you can actually kill zombies with ease just using a knife. So if you don't want to waste ammo, this could be useful. That being said, however, you should not use it against tougher enemies like dogs, birds, giant spiders, and whatnot. Otherwise, you're fucked. And now for the final verdict. While this demake of Resident Evil tries to do a good job, it's also very frustrating and confusing in many moments. With that said, the jury has found Resin Company guilty. Why?
Because it's Halloween and everyone should be eaten by zombies.